We now will talk about SATERN, the Salvation Army Team Emergency Radio Network, with Bill Feist. I've known Bill for a number of years as well, and we got to spend some time. He was in town for a conference with the volunteer organizations Active in Disasters back in May in the Rhode Island area. So we got to tie off with Bill, both officially and show him around the New England area, which was great. And Bill has been a very strong advocate of SATERN since he's taken over here. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to Bill Feist. Bill?
Thank you. You might want to save your applause until I'm done. You may not want to applause after, so. All right, let us go ahead and move on. First of all, I think a lot of you know that we did a strategic plan started about 2 years ago, implementing a strategic plan at the beginning of 2017. There's our vision statement. The future Salvation Army Team Emergency Radio Network, or SATERN, will bring together communications expertise and disaster services response to better serve those in need. That is our mission. That is our vision statement for SATERN moving into the future. There's just a real quick look at our evaluation of where we're at so far as of the end of this past year of 2018. We've gotten a lot accomplished, but we still have a great deal to do yet with the strategic plan. We have our regular net operations that go on. Of course, we have the international sideband net that meets on 14.265 Monday through Saturday at 11 o'clock Eastern Time. We aren't using UTC because it seems to just confuse everybody. And so we've just kept it at a standard local time for everyone because they understand their local time, and that's just fine. We also have a weekly international digital net on 14.065. We use Olivia. Usually now it's 1000, although it can change from time to time, with a 1500 hertz offset, which also can change from time to time. So sometimes you really do have to get on there a little earlier, put on your RSID button so that it'll automatically pick up what mode is being used and figure out what they're using that day. We also have a whole bunch of territorial nets, one for each of the 4 Salvation Army territories in the United States, one in Canada. We participate in the Alaska Pacific Aries net Monday through Friday as part of theirs, and oddly enough, even Australia has a territorial net. Here's some of our net operations statistics, and I'm not going to bore you with all of that. I'll let you look through it, but you can see we have, particularly with the single sideband net meeting 6 days out of 7, we have a lot of contacts. We cover all 50 states and a number of international contacts as well throughout the year. Overall, about 18,000 radio contacts in 2018. From all 50 states. And that doesn't include the emergency activations or the special events, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. We do participate in a number of exercises and special events. We work closely with US Mars and participate in some of their quarterly interoperability exercises. We work with the Alaska Aries Net and their exercises that they do quarterly. Of course, we're out every year for Field Day. We try to get our folks out around the country for Field Day. And Wisconsin has what's called the Patriot Exercise. It's a National Guard exercise that they do annually up in Wisconsin, and our folks in that area go out and support the Salvation Army with communications during that exercise. The one special event we had last year, 2018, was our 30th anniversary. And we had a net rally designed to increase the interest in our SATERN nets and in SATERN among current and new members. In 2018, Major Carmela McPherson, who was the KB9 YSQ, who is the widow of Major Pat McPherson, WW9E, the founder of SATERN, she agreed to allow her late husband's call sign to be transferred to our national headquarters. So that is now the official call sign for the Salvation Army's national headquarters. And we used a reproduction of his QSL card that we sent to everybody who checked into one of the SATERN nets during the net rally. And if you checked in for eight or more times to any of the nets, then you've got a certificate as well. So we had over 1,000 contacts, 44 states, 4 countries, and a lot of new people signed up for SATERN. So it was a good event for us, very enjoyable. But what you folks really want to talk about, I know, is the hurricane season. And as you can see from the map there, 2018 was a very busy season, both in the Atlantic and in the Pacific. And we were involved with both. There's the Atlantic hurricane season for 2018 as of the 29th of October. So let's talk about Tropical Storm Alberto. We did not, of course, activate for all of the hurricanes or tropical storms. Generally, our protocol is to activate for any major hurricane that's going to make landfall, and we try to activate about 24 hours ahead of time. Unlike the Hurricane Watch Net and the Voice over IP net, we are not a weather spotting network. Our primary function, our primary mission is health and welfare traffic. And so we activate for those nets where there's the possibility that there's going to be a communications failure and the need for message traffic coming out of an impacted area as health and welfare message traffic. So we did, oddly enough, we did activate for subtropical storm Alberto. It brought almost 14.5 inches of rain to Cuba, killed 10, forced the evacuation of 92,000 people in Cuba. Killed 8 in the United States, plus an EF0 tornado and lots of water and flood damage. And we primarily activated, again, for health and welfare. Part of it was just is practice, quite honestly, just to get everybody into the swing of things for the coming hurricane season. And you can see the statistics below. I won't read through all of those, but you can see it. It was a very small response thing for both us and for the Disaster Services Department in the U.S. Then, of course, there is Florence, and we've all been talking about Florence quite a bit. We know that it was a heavy rain event, 57 fatalities, over 1 million evacuations, heavy damage throughout both the Caribbean, the U.S. Atlantic coast, the mid-Atlantic in particular, the Carolinas, and even for Atlantic Canada. Again, our mission, health and welfare, and there are the statistics immediately below. This did cause create a major response nationally for the Salvation Army. We're still there, but we had people in from all over the country into the Carolinas to help out the North-South Carolina Division respond to this disaster. Then, of course, Hurricane Michael, which is now a Category 5. Catastrophic damage, as we've all seen in the pictures, 72 fatalities, 375,000 evacuations. Again, mission is the same, monitoring for health and welfare traffic, emergency priority traffic. You can see the stats below it there, 2 days of operation, 38 states, 197 check-ins. Again, this was a huge response for the Salvation Army's disaster services folks. I was deployed to South Georgia for a couple of weeks as the planning chief, and lots of people. Just about everybody who could be deployed was deployed for Hurricane Michael. It was also the first time that we managed to deploy a plum case. How many know Anybody know what a plum case is? A couple of you. Okay, for those of you who don't know what a plum case is, do you all know what a MiFi is? Takes a cell phone signal, turns it into a Wi-Fi signal, and then back again. Okay, a plum case is a Wi-Fi on very heavy-duty steroids, okay? It's 1 or 2 cradle point, which acts as the MiFi unit. Very sensitive receiver for both cell phones and for Wi-Fi. Very good transmitters for the cell phone system and Wi-Fi's. Connected into antennas that are created for those frequencies. You know, your ordinary cell phone or your ordinary MiFi has got a little antenna about that big, incredibly inefficient. Okay, so when the cell system goes down or gets clogged, it's not going to hear anything. The plum case and other cases like it, they're called mobile broadband kits. What they do, because the receivers are so sensitive and they've got good antennas, they can hear cell signals that are much further out. So if the cell phone system has either gone down in the immediate area of the disaster or it's just overloaded from everybody using it, it will hear signals further out, bring that signal in, and allow you to translate that into a Wi-Fi signal that your computers can hook up to. And now your incident command team has internet, voice over IP, telephone capabilities, and so on out of their command post, even though nobody else has any cell phone to speak of. That's what a mobile broadband kit is, or a plum case. Okay, and we managed to deploy one for the first time this year with Michael, and it worked incredibly well. Very, very impressed with it all. Okay, Pacific hurricane season. Again, you can see the Pacific, or the Eastern Pacific, at least as far out as Hawaii, was really quite busy this past year. And this is one of the few times that we've gotten involved in the Pacific hurricane season. But there was enough activity out there that we felt it warranted it. And the first time was for Hurricane Lane, which was a Category 5. It eventually weakened to a Category 1 or 2, as I remember it, as it passed by Hawaii. It did not make a direct impact on Hawaii. It passed south of it. But it did bring a lot of rain. It was the second wettest hurricane in history for the United States, surpassed only by Harvey. So it brought a lot of rain, and that did impact the Hawaiian Islands. There was only one fatality, luckily, and about $250 million in damage. We were on for a couple of days. We had check-ins from all of the United States and one country. And there was the Pacific Hawaii Division responded to it as a divisional response, but didn't require other people to come into Hawaii. Darn it. I was waiting, too. I was waiting for that call to go to Hawaii. But oh well. Okay. Hurricane Willa, Category 3. This is the hurricane that started out in the Eastern Pacific and curved into Mexico, and then ran up through Arizona and then on into Texas. You can see 6 fatalities, about 10,000 people displaced, and $537 million in damage. Fairly short response by us, a divisional response by the Texas Division for all the rain there. I'm assuming that the Salvation Army responded in Mexico, but quite frankly, I don't have any information on that. Oops. So what went well? Well, first of all, we're getting a whole lot better at mobilizing our net. We can mobilize our international single sideband net within about 24 hours or less if we have to. Same thing for the digital net, Southern Territory net, which were used much more this past year. We had good participation from our SATERN members and our partners. Our partners have been very important to us, both this past year and the year before in 2017. Hurricane WatchNet, Mars, Voice over IP Net. A lot of the folks that you've seen here talking have been great partners with us, providing us information, providing us with personnel when we needed to keep the nets running. What needs improvement? First of all, the ability to quickly mobilize and deploy people into the field. We still have not gotten that down well for us. Part of that's because of how the Salvation Army is now deploying people and classifying our operators as disaster services volunteers. It's just become more complicated. And so we're having to figure out how that works and how we can work through that system. We need to pre-identify our deployable volunteers and ensure that they're properly credentialed ahead of time. There's administrative details that have to be worked out regarding volunteer deployment and personal equipment. There are now lots of risk management rules about bringing your own equipment and your own vehicles into a disaster area that didn't exist years ago. And when we do partner with partners such as, say, the ARRL, sometimes they have administrative needs that we're not aware of. And so we find out that we have to start quickly working through some of that stuff as well. And one of our hopes is that eventually we'll start to have divisional SATERN coordinators for each one of our divisions who can start working with the local groups at a local level rather than us trying to do it from either territorial headquarters or from national headquarters. This gives you just kind of an overview of the activity for the year. All of the hurricanes plus the net rally. You can see there was a total of 22 days of activity, or about 84 hours of operation, that involved about 1,700 amateur radio operators. And that's it. Quick, short, and sweet. And I understand we're leaving questions to the panel. Is that right? Okay. That was it then.